Thank you everyone for being here today. I was not expecting uh, this much people, so I'm happy to have many of you today. And let me start with the agenda. I believe this is the fourth meeting that we have together. We are getting closer and closer to the putting together the action plan for this faculty institute. So today we're going to talk a little about the due dates for this project and also try to provide you with a little more clarity on what are the things that will be happening in the following weeks. Then after that, Cassandra is going to show you what is the approach that we are expecting you to follow to complete section number 4, which is about classroom policies and assessments. And this is something very critical because in order for you to be able to complete this section, we are going to provide you with some data. But to provide you with that data, we need your input. So it's going to be critical to follow Cassandra's explanation on what is that we want to provide you. Then after that, I'm gonna show you, just like last time, a little example of one way to use the data that we have provided to you so far. And this example is going to be about headcount. The reason why we picked headcount this time is because we have spending some time looking into everyone's online forms, and we saw how many of you included headcount as something important for you to somehow review or build some sort of intervention around that. So we'll try to talk a little about that, and then we will talk about the classroom intervention. So we want to do some sort of short brainstorm about potential classroom interventions that you could put together for your action plan. So I'm gonna throw some ideas, something that we found in different places, and we can all as a group start thinking or speaking about what of those interventions or potential interventions are really feasible and which not are, which ones are not. And as always, we will finish with a Q&A. First we will start with the group questions, and then you can stay on the line so that you can ask any personal questions. So all that being said, let me jump to the first slide that I have, which is about the project due dates. Please disregard what it's highlighted with gray because that already happened. So today we will be focusing in section number 4. As I said, this is about classroom policies and assessment, and Cassandra will be showing you how to deal with that. But as you can see where it says section number 4, and let me just grab a laser. As you can see in section number 4, there are 3 lines. And there are 3 lines because you have the actual section which you need to complete. But in order to get to that place, you need to receive some data from us. Now, for us to provide you with that data, we need your input. But you'll get more clarity on this once Cassandra starts showing you what we are talking about. So that is section 4. And section 4 is due by July 31st. And then we have section 5, which is about the action plan, which is also due by July 31st. And then we have the PD event of September 25th. Now, this is pretty much what I just showed to you, but in a different way. Maybe this is gonna resonate a little more with you. So what's going on? Today we are here. This is today's meeting. And then after that, there's gonna be a conversation between us and you and us about what data would you like to have to complete section 4. Then you're gonna complete section 4. And then we have the July meeting. Then you need to complete the action plan by July 31st. And then there's gonna be some sort of feedback meetings. So the purpose of these meetings is for us to let you know, maybe provide you some sort of feedback about your action plan. And then you just need to follow up on feedback. Now, maybe right now this sounds not clear enough, but it will be getting more and more clear as we get close to any of these dates, and we will be sending out emails and putting all the important information in the Canvas shell. Another important thing that I want to mention is we started sending out emails last week to people about the online form, the contents they have in their online form. So we have been reviewing your content and trying to provide you feedback regarding either things that we believe you could speak in your narrative, or maybe offering you different support based on based on your level of progress, and also trying to point you to different resources. Because to give you one example, maybe a particular faculty member said, hey, I am interested in understanding how to connect better with younger students. So we're trying to point you to potential resources that might give you information about that. Now, I also would like to invite you or encourage you to visit the Canvas Shell. I put an announcement last week or the week after, the week before last one, because Liat Sao, that she's our project assistant, and she has been working in reorganizing the Canvas Shell in a way that it is more welcoming to everyone. I have been receiving great advice from Ingrid Greenberg. So Leah is trying to apply some of that feedback in order to make this a more engaging Canvas Shell. So feel free to please go take a look. Let us know things that you like, things that you didn't like. There's a lot. We are trying to put a couple of discussions in there. So feel free to participate in those discussions, because we will also be using those discussions to ask you to share different, useful resources. Because one limitation that we have found as a research office, and at least I gotta say, at least from my end, is that when I'm looking at your online forms, sometimes I find things are very interesting, in the sense of, you might tell me, Jesus, I would love to learn how to connect better, or how to increase retention, success, or any other metrics for this particular population. How can I do that? And I'm like, I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure some of the faculty is able to share good resources. So all those things I would like to, if we could find a way to throw that kind of discussion in the Canvas Shell. Anyway, so just wanted to throw that in there. Now that I said that, I am wondering, before jumping to Cassandra's Cassandra's section 4 explanation, I'm wondering if any of you have any questions or comments about what we just saw. I know, yeah, anyone who's got any comments or questions. It seems like we're okay, and I believe the more closer we get to different things, some questions might arise, so feel free to send an email or just put a question on the Canvas Shell. So now is the section number 4, classroom policies and assessments. So I'm going to stop sharing, Cassandra, if that is okay?
Yeah, you don't have the form in your PowerPoint, do you?
No, but I do have it open in case you want to go through that one.
Can you pull it up? Do you mind?
Yes, hold on. Can everyone see my PDF document?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Thanks, Jesus. Okay, so section 4, which is the last section that we have to complete before we get to the your strategy piece. So before we get to section 4, I just want to remind you guys that in section 3, we had this really great conversation about syllabi and how everyone's using their syllabus. And I found out a couple key points that I wanted to share back out with the group. One is I went back and because we were talking about, well, do we really have to use the institution framework for how to create a syllabi? So apparently from the equity conversation that we had in spring, it would have been, the institution has been revising the template syllabi. So I just received it. I'm looking through it. I'd like to be able to put it up on the Canvas for everybody. I'm trying to understand if you have to have all elements or just pieces of the elements, because it is a little lengthy, longer than what I'm used to seeing the syllabus look like. I see, Leah, you shaking your head too. So I usually, in my mind, syllabuses are very quick and like a good way to just explain things quickly.
Yeah. And the low literate students can't read half of what we're supposed to include. So
Yeah.
it's a little dodgy, you know?
So I'm working with Marnie's group on just kind of determining like, well, what pieces do they actually have to have versus is nice to have? Because I know it was a really, really valuable discussion, and I loved to see that everyone was so passionate about their own syllabus. I thought that was awesome. So I don't want you to think I've forgotten. It's just a little bit of a longer conversation than I intended.
Yeah, I did, Cassandra. I did also meet with Marnie on syllabus on that. And because I was just cycling over, I did get permission to deviate from the standard template on it. And what I did is I moved my grading policy and a lot of those other things completely out of the syllabus, made the syllabus more warning. It used those as different read pages in Canvas. So that way, once they get in, then they're digesting the reading or the homework or the other things. And I actually took them out of that syllabus.
That's great.
And staggered it. That way I got my syllabus down to really, I think, less than 3 pages. Basically, here's what we're covering, here's what we're doing. I'm really excited to have you here. You're awesome. And then moved all the nuts and bolts, all the 3100 stuff, all the other stuff, still in the required check I've read pages. And I use a quiz in Canvas to see what's this covers. What does this talk about in 3100? What does this talk about in the syllabus? What days do we how's it great? So I refer back to those other pages, but I got them out of the syllabus. So
Right.
that way it's really more digestible. Tucked to the syllabus could just be that excitement. Now let's get into the course.
For sure. And I think that's what I just need Marnie's group and then also the executive team just to weigh in on, because I think everyone should have that grace to be able to do that, because it is really, it is a lot. Again, I think when you're looking at a syllabus, it's supposed to be very quick, like, you know, the basic pieces, maybe a little bit on who you are as an instructor or how the class is going to go.
Right.
And ours is just really long. And I don't know if there's a rationale for that or not. But that's good to know, Brian. I might use that as an example as I continue to go through this.
Right, and I'm happy to share that with you, Cassandra, or whatever. I mean, by my no means a great writer, and there's plenty of room for improvement, but that's how I staggered it and set it up.
Maybe we can use, because I know that's the other thing, we want to get examples up on the Canvas. So if you have something that you'd like to share, please let me know so I can get it up there.
Yeah.
And then I have some examples as well, but I wanted to be able to get the new template up for you guys. Okay, so section 4. Most of these are all about your classroom policies and how you interact with the students. I know we've said this many times, just think about where you truly are and not where you want to be. So just think about how you react to these situations as you are working with students. And then if you can go down a little bit to the second page, I think, Jesus. There's a point on number 9. Well, it will ask you to work together with peers. So far, it seems like people really are fine with picking their peers and working with these. I don't need to assign anyone, but of course, if you aren't comfortable, I'm happy to assign peers to each other. But this one is a group activity, so make sure that you're reaching out to somebody and, you know, kind of looking at different things. I know it's a little bit tougher in our environment, but hopefully you still have the ability to do that. And then if you can move to this next page. All right, so this is where you're going to use your current syllabus to go through however you do your assessments, what the percentage of the grade is there, and then the number of assessments. And then if you, does everyone understand that? So
I thought that this was for the assessments we're using for the CRN that we did when we're looking at the drop-off, not our current one.
Well, whatever, you're right, Brian, whatever syllabus that you were using or whatever class you want to look at, that's what you're putting in. You're absolutely correct. So I apologize for that. You're putting in that information. So usually most people have that already kind of bulleted out on their syllabi. So hopefully that won't be a problem, pretty easy to put in. But where the issue, not issue, but I think it's the next page, Jesus. And if you don't have, if that doesn't apply to you, there's a question.
Yeah, this is where I had the question and.
Yes. So I have an answer for you.
Good, because I've stopped here since I sent that one email. I haven't gone any further because I was going to have to just kind of back up 10 yards and punt and do my best, but I was hoping for a better.
Yes. So we did a test of this to see what we could pull, and we were able to pull the weekly ACS. I have my staff do it. So
okay.
What we need from you is we need the CRN that you want us to track.
Okay.
one CRN that you want us to track. And after this, Molly will most likely either send out an email to you or with a sheet asking for that CRN.
Okay.
And then we will, all these weeks, week 1, 2, 3, we will put that together for you so you will get that information.
Okay, perfect. Now, the other thing, the question I has on the assessment, I have multiple assessments every week, and this really doesn't have a drop down. It's going to get too cumbersome if I'm putting 6 or 10 assessments in, 1 week or another, because it doesn't continue to drop down and give you different layers where you could really tier that where, hey, here's the tests, here's the quizzes, here's the homeworks, here's the labs, because there's multiple things going on. And that way you could really kind of stagger and see both the load of the sizes height-wise as well as you could track it better. I mean, putting them all in one square is going to just get to the point where it just becomes not usable. And so my other question is, you just want major assignments? I mean, do we want, I know a lot of my drop-off is after the midterm every time, even on students that get a B on it. I don't know if they think that we did a test, we're done. I'm not sure what happens there.
So on the beginning part of this, it does say number of assignments, but you're right. It doesn't allow you to kind of say like, that's on the previous page.
Right. Yeah, that's the number that you have for each category, and I did that.
Yeah.
But then it wants us to put which ones were due each week. I mean, I have weeks where I've got maybe 2 quizzes, an attendance grade, a lab that they're finishing up on. I mean, there's just a lot of moving stuff.
So here's what I would say. I would say that when we put it in for the ACS, when you see that drop, that's the week to kind of look at and figure out, well, okay, what is going on? And maybe if you have 14 assignments due that week, that could be, part of the problem, right? Now, I don't know if we'll be able to isolate which one it is, but it'll give you a week to kind of like, okay, I need to look at this and see what's going on.
Right, because I use a lot of small assignments, and a lot of my assignments are I put in PowerPoint questions in my PowerPoint. When I get done with the PowerPoint, I open up a quiz, which is all the same questions we've discussed, because I want them to repeat it, because hearing it once, they're not going to remember it. So there's a lot of things like that are, I look at the average time. They spent 7 minutes on it or 10 minutes on it, but it really helps with retention. So I do a lot of small stuff like that.
Yeah. So let's look at it that way. And then if we have to dive deeper, we can kind of do that. Shirley's asking, the form goes to 16 weeks. Is there an allowance for 18-week course? I don't know, Jesus, if we actually had them change the form when we went through it with the region.
I don't think we mentioned that, but let me reach out to John and ask him what are the options regarding that.
Thank you. So we'll try to get you an answer for that, Shirley. Does everyone else have 18-week courses?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't know. Whatever 300 hours is.
Do you teach the full? Okay.
Are we talking about fall, or are we talking about?
Which this is for whatever CRN you want to look at. So it would be a previous CRN, not a new CRN.
Okay, so all right.
Yeah.
But we'll reach back out. Maybe we have to have them add it into the form for you guys.
18, yeah.
Can I speak to something, Cassandra?
Of course.
In welding, I'm going down to the assessment on the second row, not how many students remain, but assessments. Guess that is too, number of students remaining in the course on both of those. Isn't there one though where we actually say what the assessments are?
If there's an assessment type, and that's the page previous to this,
Right.
which will say the assessment type, the weighted, the weight of each assessment, and the number of assessments for each.
Right. As Brad and I designed this online aspect to our course, which we haven't had before, I think it'll be much better academically for the students in the long run. But still, all in all, in our discipline of welding, the assessments are, we have a definite pattern of assessments we go, but it's hard to say. They're not broken down to like, if you haven't met this at week 3, well, you're out. everybody works at their different pace. So it's hard for me to really say what's happening at week 3. Could have happened, week 3's assessment could have happened for 5 of them.
So can I rephrase that to make sure I know what you're saying, Bob?
Okay.
Because I think I do. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
So you're saying let's use week 3, and let's say in week 3 you're giving a test. You're saying that not everyone takes that test in week 3. Some people may take it in week 5. Or am I?
No, well, as far as the hands-on welding part goes, okay? Everybody, let's say I've got 25 welders. Here's your first assignment, 25 welders. 3 of them might get it the very next day. 10 might get it in another week. 3 weeks out, there might be 2 that still can't figure it out for the life of them. So everything's an individual case.
So they're going at their own pace.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And there's just no other way, or we'd go, well, you're out, you're out, you're out.
And you guys are moving to managed enrollment, so are you still going to be handling your class that way, or with managed enrollment?
I just don't see any other way, because it would be like, okay, 25 physical education students, your first goal is to do 100 push-ups in a row.
Right.
Might get 2 of them do it that day.
Right. So you're really talking about the hands-on competencies
That's what I'm talking about. So.
Do you do any testing in the course as well?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe for your assessments, you use the actual testing that you're doing, because you would have that on more of a schedule, correct, or no?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe just use that.
And as we go online, the testing is going to be much more formal and stuff too.
Sure, because we also do checklists in healthcare, and you're right, not everyone gets it the first time, and we're constantly going back, but the the testing, we have it pretty, like, it happens on certain days, so maybe focus on that.
Sure. But I mean, as far as vocational training, just everybody gets it at a different.
Yes.
That would really blow my mind if everyone came back at the same day and said, hey, we're all done with our, wow, how'd that work?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I see what you're saying. So
Okay.
I would put the more formalized ones in, and let's track those then.
Okay.
All right, Jesus, I think that's it for me. The most important thing is whatever class that you really want to look at, you need to give us the CRN for that.
Okay.
If you don't know the CRN, if you're like, I don't know what it is, then you give us some information. We should be able to find it, but the CRN would be the best thing. If you have those now, feel free to email them to me. If you don't, again, Molly will be reaching out and just saying, that's what we need to move forward for this number of students remaining in the course portion.
Sure. Cassandra, the CRN that we use, does it have to be one of the ones that we got the data from Jesus on, or can it be a more recent CRN since you're pulling it just off of the attendance off the ACS?
I don't think they have to match, Jesus, because if they're looking, do you think they have to match?
No, because now that we provided to you the spreadsheets, you know how the spreadsheets gave you way more CRNs. So maybe you decided that instead of using one of the regional ones, you went for a different. But the one thing I think they will need to do is make sure that that CRN belongs to ISIS, right, Cassandra? So that you and your team can pull that.
Yes, which it should, if we're looking at, as long as we're not looking at spring 2019, or 2020, which we couldn't have done anyway for this institute, we should be okay.
Okay, so fall 2019 or older, basically.
That should be fine.
I think fall 19 wouldn't be feasible because fall 19 was Campus Solutions already.
Was it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think the last term in ISIS was spring 19, which is the last term of data we have, actually. That's
Okay.
the last, yeah.
I can get clarity on that, though.
Yeah.
I'll just ask the staff of what they're pulling up.
Spring 19, you're saying, Jesus?
Yeah, but I would say Cassandra might have better insight on this.
Okay.
Yeah, let me have them pull it up just to make
Because
sure.
obviously for this, because I know I'm constantly making changes, I'd love to use the most recent one that I can that's got enough weeks in it.
Hey, Jesus, when we gave them parameters for being part of the Faculty Institute, what was the cutoff date? Was it spring 2019?
19.
Oh, then that's what it is. Spring 20.
Okay.
You're right. It's spring 2019. because that was the parameters for the Faculty Institute.
Okay, so that's be one of the ones I have then. So, okay.
So Cassandra, what would be the best way for them to let you know the CRN?
Right. So they are welcome to email me now with them that they have them, no problem. If they don't have them, Molly will be sending an email to everybody just saying, hey, this is what we need from you. And then once you get that back, once we get that back from you, we'll be able to complete this lower portion for you.
Now, I just had another thought, not to throw another wrench in. This is based on a whole course. Our courses take up several CRNs. So if I'm just looking at one CRN, I'm going to get a snapshot of 8 weeks or 4 weeks, or, I mean, I just had a CRN that was 3 days. You know, so how am I going to reconcile? It's going to be a little challenging to reconcile which week is what. I guess I'll have to play with that.
Well, what do you mean, Brian? Your auto courses they're 8 or 9 weeks, aren't they?
They're 13 weeks, basically.
Okay.
52 instructional days, but several CRNs.
You've got a 3-day course, Brian?
Yeah, we had my course I'm teaching right now, I had 3 days on one CRN. I got the summer CRN, and I'm going to get 3 days in fall. So I'm going to have one class of students that's going to be with me 3 semesters, 3 CRNs.
Okay, but normally, let's just take that one aside. When you teach a 13-week class, where are the multiple CRNs? Because I don't ever remember.
Yeah, because usually, because of how we do, usually I have a class that goes from between more than one semester, depending on when we cycle. So I've had some past that are one, but a lot of times, because we might finish up in May, so now I got a CRN for a month and then go into summer. So this is unusual. I got 3, but I have a lot of them with 2.
I see what you're saying. So your class is essentially not finishing in that semester.
Right. So then we'd have to get a new CRN, because I'm like, if we're cycling a week, like we did 3 days before the semester changes, or 2 weeks before the semester change, because we're cycling in January, for example.
I got you.
We got to give them, you know, we're on one CRN then another.
That's fine. Just if you could just tell us that there are 2 CRNs and like one starts here and then this is the one that continues it, we can still pull it up. That's fine.
And that way I can get 13. That way I can get the full week for that group of students. Okay.
That makes sense. We can do that.
Let me take a look. I have to do a little bit of research, make sure I hit a set of CRNs that go together.
Thank you. All right, that's it for me, Jesus.
Yeah, I just see on the chat that, so about the due date, if you could provide this to Cassandra by June 19th, because I believe it takes a little while to really pull this data. So Cassandra, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys could give it to us by June 19th, it would be really helpful. If you can't, or if you even say this is the class, like this is the semester and this is the class I want to look at, we should be able to, you know, kind of figure that out. But if you could give us that information by the 19th, that way it gives my staff some time to actually pull it for you guys. And then if there's any questions, we can contact you before we give you the information. Does that work for everybody?
That's just in a few days, huh?
It is in a few days, but hopefully you already have an idea of a class that you want to look at or that you've been kind of tracking. If you don't, we can work offline, Bob.
And then this whole section is due on the 3rd of July?
The 31st.
Oh, 31st.
Yeah, in this case, July 3rd, it would be the day when Cassandra and her team would provide you the data.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully it'll be before then, but I need to give them enough time to make sure they can get everything done. They're stretched too right now, I think. Does that work for everybody?
Mm-hmm. Will you be doing those office hours again like we did? That was good.
Yes. We are doing office hours again. Jesus, I think, is in the process of setting it up.
Yeah, I totally screwed up my last one. I had too many meetings.
No, don't worry. Yeah, no, and because the next time what we're gonna try to do is align Cassandra's schedule with my schedule better, so that we can both be in the support meetings, especially because the next one-on-ones will be more about the action plan.
Yeah, that's where we're really going to get into the meat of it. Leah,
Yeah,
did you?
So can I ask, okay, July 31st is when we have step 4 done, or our whole action plan done?
Both.
Both, okay.
Both. Remember how we talked about we've been really working hard on not making people stick to the internal schedule as long as everything was done by July 31st. So
Okay,
you can police yourself over the next month and a half. We are going to do the one-on-ones because we do want to be able to help anyone through their action plans, but they're both due by July 31st.
okay.
Will we have another group meeting like this about the action plans?
We will have one, I think, is it the week of July 15th, Jesus?
Yeah.
Is that
That's gonna be July 15th.
So yes, we will have one more.
Okay, good.
And then we'll have the availability to be able to meet with you guys one-on-one if you just want to talk about, you know, where you are and what we think we can do.
Before the 31st.
Yes.
Okay.
31st.
Cassandra,
We're not going to leave you alone. We're in this with you.
Cassandra,
Yes.
I had a general question about the action plan. I know that we did all our data on certain CRNs, right? And then now we kind of have, if we want, could choose a different CRN to do the section 4 with. However, going forward, if we think we're not teaching any of those classes that we just did all this research in, is it still okay to have your action plan not be surrounding the classes that you just did all the research on?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It just seems that, so, you know, part of this exercise is really an exercise in having people do research and look at it and really understand, you know, what indicators can we help change as faculty, because faculty is by far the most important indicator on whether a student's going to succeed or not. You know, their connection to you is huge. So part of it is just kind of going through and really looking at data and really starting to understand that. But I can't imagine that it would be a good idea if you're not teaching a class to do an action plan on that class. So both me and Jesus agree that if, you know, you're teaching something new, then we have to really help you with that action plan, regardless if it's reflective here or not. And I don't know quite how we're going to do that, but I don't want anyone to have to waste their time doing an action plan that they can't actually use in a course. So we're going to be on the hook for that and what that's going to look like, and we'll work with you, but it just doesn't make any sense to do it that way.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to hand it back over to Jesus now.
Okay, let me just go back to the presentation. Hold on one sec. Okay, can anyone see my presentation right now?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good. So today I wanted to provide you another example of how you can use the data, but I wanted to say that, again, what I did in here, or what I'm going to be showing to you, this is based on dummy data that I put together. I, again, made some of the differences between the different groups more dramatic in a way that I could make my point. So just keep that in mind as we go through this. You're going to have to bear with me through different things, you know, different assumptions that I made. And I also wanted to mention, also keep in mind that there are many ways, there are multiple ways to analyze the data. So the way that I'm trying to show you is kind of like how I would do it for this particular situation. That doesn't mean that you have to do it in the exact same way, because one of the main objectives of this kind of project is trying to show you how more than like one method to analyze data, there's like multiple methods, and this is more about making you feel empowered with the data, not afraid of the data. And so that tomorrow, whenever you feel like there's something going on in your classroom, or whenever you feel like there's a problem in the institution, you feel like confident enough to open some data sheets, some spreadsheets, some dashboards, and start thinking about what can you do about it. So just keep that in mind as we go through. Now, the data or the example that I'm putting together for you is, again, one example in where I am the faculty. I am from the program called Institutional Research, and the course name is Statistics 101. I have a particular CRN that I am analyzing, and my campus for this example, it's my class is being offered or was offered at Cesar Chavez. So as I mentioned at the very beginning of this presentation, this is about headcount. So today we will be working with a headcount example. The reason why I picked headcount example is because I saw how many of you in your online forms included questions about this, in a sense that you mentioned that you were interested in learning more about how, how to improve your enrollment or your headcount, how to maybe increase the enrollment from a specific group. So it's trying to speak to that portion of your online form. So let's start from showing how this data sheet works. Remember, blue data sheets are head counts. So if you go back to the PDFs that we sent to you at the beginning, you will have some blue data sheets. And at the top of these data sheets, you can see what is the data about. So in this case, by looking at the black box, I see that my data is about head count and is for spring 19. Now, if I look at the left, I can see how I have different demographic groups. I have gender, ethnicity, and age group, and also a total. At the top, I can see different levels of disaggregation. So I have my CRN, which is the one that I am analyzing. And then I have also the course level data, which is not only me, but any other faculty that taught this class in spring 19. And the third column is the overall program. In this case, all the different courses offered inside of institutional research. The columns on the left, those are the actual headcount or the actual people that are in my class, in the course, and in the program. So you can see how, for example, in my class, I had 26 females, 24 males. I had 1 African-American student, 6 Asian students. So you can see how that works. The same for the course level and the same for the institutional, for the program level. On the right, you have the distribution, which means that, for example, in my classroom, I had 24 male students, which represented 48% of my population. So this is just so that you get how the data sheet was organized. Now, the next thing that I want to show you, Patty, is in this case, Course Statistics 101 would be all the classes that were offered in spring 19, like all the teachers, all the faculty together. So say that in this case, my class had 50 students, but if I add my class with Cassandra's class and also Patty's class, which happens to be Statistics 101, we all had 200 students.
Okay, wait a minute. So the course stats are all the classes in the whole healthcare career program?
For that course.
For that particular
Okay,
class.
so that does say that it's the same class as same course as my course.
Correct, yes.
Yes. So like
Okay.
this one, like the course, it would be all the PCAs together versus
Okay, thank you.
CRN, which
Okay.
would just be yours.
Thank you. I said the wrong word. Thanks.
All right. So now that we understand how the data sheet works, I want you to spend 1 minute looking at the data. My advice, again, there's many ways to do this, but my advice is to start looking at the percentages. So I want to give you 1 minute or 2 minutes and look at the data and let me know what is, catching your attention. Anything that for you is interesting when you look at the data.
Can I speak to something not related to that?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, how's this supposed to help us with that one part of section 4 where we're supposed to say how many students are remaining after week 3, after week 4, how's this supposed to help?
No, this is independent. This is just like another example of how you can use the data.
So are we like guessing our hypothetical?
No, Bob, that's where we got to give her the CRN so she can get us the ACS of week by week.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian.
Okay. Thank you.
So I would say anything that by looking at the percentages, anything that it is, catching your attention, if you could let us know.
I noticed that your class has a much younger population.
Okay. Anything else?
You have less African Americans than average across for how many are in the total program.
Okay. So Brian, can you tell us why or how you identified that my class had younger students than the other classes?
I'm looking at the 40 and over, and you're at 22%. The rest is pretty consistent, 38, 39%. So that could be based on time it was offered, accessibility. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into that, but you definitely have a younger class.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you. Shirley, so you said that you saw that we have less African-American students, right?
Yes.
Okay, so as you can see how we have a 2%. So in my class, 2% of my students were African-American, whereas in the course, like all the faculty together or all the courses that were offered, they had 8%, and at the overall program, it was 9%. So for me, yes, those were my two highlights. And again, there could be other options. There could be maybe for someone, it is interesting to talk about female male distribution, Latino Pacific Islander distribution. There is never the only answer. There's never something like, hey, this is the only group that you should be analyzing. It's more about what is catching your attention and just trying to follow up that, you know, line of thinking and start throwing more data to get to somewhere. But yes, in this case, we're gonna follow the example using African-American students and 40 and older students. I can say that whenever we do this, whenever we use headcount data, we do some sort of analysis that we call axis analysis, in the sense that we try to compare the distribution of our classrooms. We try to compare that to other, you know, to other groups. In this case, I noticed that comparing my class versus the overall course or versus the overall program, there was something going on. So that is that always helped me to flag things that might not be, you know, where there might be some space for improvement. However, let's say that I'm looking at this data and I am not entirely sure that there's something that I should be doing about this. Because again, okay, as Brian mentioned, maybe this is something just related to at what time are you offering the class, like, or you know, different things that are not entirely related to the classroom. But still, I want to make sure, I want to continue analyzing the information in a way that I can know if there's any room for improvement. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at a different report. Last time, we were working with the spreadsheet. I was showing you how to jump from here to the spreadsheet, but today I want to share with you two different reports. The first one that I want us to look at is the student equity report. And the report is available in the Canvas shell, so you can go ahead and download it. And it is also available in our website. But say we're gonna start with the African-American population. So say that I see that I have 2%, and I see that my course or all the people teaching this class had 8% and the program had 9%. So I want to look at the student equity report because there might be useful information in there. So I open the equity report and I have this table. So what you're looking in the table is another head count. But the difference is that in this head count, you have something called SDCE service area, which in this case is in San Diego City. What is the population distribution? So the thing is, sometimes what happens is that we might not be getting or having a particular demographic in our classrooms just because there is not a lot of that population in the place where our campus is located. So that is why it's always good to go and look the service area data and understand if, well, maybe I don't have like a lot of Latino students just because this area, there are not a lot of Latino students. So that is kind of like a good analysis that you can always do. So for example, just by looking at this data, I see that per the equity report, you can see how the second column says SDC service area, 6% are African-American. So,
Hey, Luz,
yes?
what is the service area? Is that for all of San Diego Community College District service area? Like where all of our campuses are?
Yes, and this is the thing. This, the one that you're looking at right now, this is all San Diego City.
Okay.
But there are more pieces of information that you can use in case you want to take this analysis to another level.
I'm wondering if we could put in some of the civilian data for them.
We are actually going to put that in there.
Never mind.
So
then.
yeah.
Okay.
So the thing that I want to point out in here is that you can see how you're following a path. So you started here and you think that you identify something important, but now you're looking at this report because there might be something useful in here. And you see like, okay, 6%, but again, well, that is San Diego City. I mean, that is the entire city. And my class was being offered in Cesar Chavez, right? So what if Cesar Chavez population is not the same as San Diego City population? So I need to get more detail here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use a third report. So the third report is the one that Cassandra just brought up. The third report is a market analysis that Civilian put together for San Diego continuing education, I believe last year or at the beginning of this year. So I also put that in the Canvas shell. But the good thing about this report is that this report was developed in a way that allows you to isolate each of the campus's demographics. So if you didn't like this one because it was San Diego City, and that is not specific enough, you can look at the Civilian report because that has data for each of the campuses. So I look at the Civilian report, and I'm gonna look at the last column, the one that says percentage of the market. And you can see how African Americans, they represent 6% of the demographics or of the total population in the area surrounding Cesar Chavez. Now, I wanna take one step, I wanna pause for a little while, and I wanna make sure that we are all on the same page why location is so important when we speak about non-credit.
Did you have a question? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
So I guess I want to point out that whenever we're trying to analyze this kind of information, location seems to be very important. Right now, for example, we're trying to isolate only Cesar Chavez. So I'm wondering if any of you could provide me any thoughts on why do you believe it's so important location whenever we're doing this kind of access analysis?
Well, because our housing is so segregated and so different areas of the city have very different populations depending on who lives there, and their needs are different. And, you know, it's why we choose to put some programs in one spot and not in another because of the population surrounding the campus, right?
Yeah, that is great. Yes.
Transportation concerns as far as, you know, is the campus easily accessed?
Do you, by easily accessed, you mean like?
Oh, go ahead.
Is it easy to get to that campus on any of the public transportation?
Yes.
Primarily?
Yes, that is critical. The one thing and we talk about a lot. We have been talking about that a lot lately because when you compare, for example, credit college students versus non-credit college students, or even four-year college students versus non-credit, one thing that it is very different between our population and their population is the fact that many of our students, they don't even have a car. They don't have a reliable source of transportation. So for lots of them, just because you have this great offering, say at the north of the city, or that doesn't mean, I mean, I might love whatever you're offering nearby Mira Mesa or at Miramar College, that might be great. But the problem is that I live in, say, San Isidro. So how am I supposed to drive there every day? So that is why thinking about the location is critical. Because as Leah mentioned, yes, the demographics at every different neighborhood are gonna change, and we cannot assure, or we are not really, we cannot assure that students are gonna be able to drive or take the public transportation to get to point A to, you know, from point A to point B. So that is why it's very important to always keep location, you know, as a, in our analysis, especially when we're talking about access. So that is great feedback. So I wanna point out that by looking at the 6% here, I still see a problem because my classroom only had 2%, the demographic compensation was 2% African American. So this data is showing me that at least 6% of the market is African American. And you can take this even deeper. You can take this, go even further, because you might be wondering, well, yes, Jesus, but you also need to consider that not all the people say are interested in a CTE program, or not all the people are interested in an ESL program or getting their high school diploma. That also, that could also be included in the analysis. So I wanted to point out, and I'm just going to quickly show you another source of information that you can use, because I also included this in the Canvas shell. Can you see a spreadsheet right now?
While you do that, can I just ask about the civilian? Did you break it down by zip codes for them?
Hold on. Civilian did break out, yeah, no, but you know what? No, because civilian didn't include that by zip code.
No, we have it by zip code.
Yeah, but at the top,
Uh-huh.
there's no, they didn't provide information, like for every zip code, you cannot see the demographics. But
no, but what you can see is the percentage that's going to that campus.
Yes, that is something, and you will find that in the report that I uploaded to the Canvas shell. Yeah,
Okay.
you will have that information.
One of the things, guys, if you take a look at that, you can see how many zip codes are really responsible for your enrollment at each campus. It doesn't break it down by course or program, but you can, to Jesus's point, you can see, like, for instance, for Chavez and ECC, I think we share 2 zip codes, but ultimately 2 or 3 zip codes are responsible for about 80% of all of our enrollments. So it's really important to know that those are the zip codes that are, pretty important that you want to look at. And they tend to be the zip codes that are closest to the campus. So they definitely do have that proximity point to, for Shirley's point that transportation is truly important.
I wanted to show you, hold on one sec. Just so that you can see civilians report. So if you go to the Canvas shell and then you click on resources, you're gonna find this report. And this is the report that we're talking about. So you can see how, for example, for Cesar Chavez, the report shows you like the zip codes that are making the most of your total enrollment for that campus. So that comes pretty handy, because it allows you to really understand if, are my students coming from areas nearby the campus, or are they coming from, places far from there? And you can even click in here. If you click here, it says click here for map. It's going to take you to a place where you can look at the different zip codes, because you might be wondering, well, yeah, Jesus, but I don't know what, 92101, I don't know where that is. So you can click in here, and that's going to show you where you can find it.
So those top 3 zip codes are 50% of our enrollment. And I believe that they're also 50% of ECC's enrollment, or we share a zip code that together combined, it's like 40% of all enrollment.
Yeah, I think it's 92101, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just something, it's interesting. Those 3 zip codes to us are most important from a campus perspective.
And the critical thing here to keep in mind is you can see how, for example, this is another great idea. Okay, why don't we focus on the zip codes, or why don't we focus on this demographics, or why don't we focus on the fact that if a student, they have a car or they don't have a car, all those different things. Again, I just want to stress enough that there's not like a unique path. It wouldn't be feasible for us to show you all the potential combinations of research that you can do, all the potential analysis, you can put together. No, that is more of what are you interested in learning more about. So again, this is another good resource that you can use. And this is another one that I put in the Canvas shell. This one, can you see a spreadsheet that says selected population 3 million something? Mm-hmm. Okay, if you were interested in taking this to even more, dig even deeper than that, you might be wondering, well, yes, I mean, there's this percentage of population and blah, 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 blah. But again, maybe they are not interested in getting their high school diploma. Maybe they are not interested in learning English. Maybe they're not ESL people. You know, they are not people that need to learn English. So I need to somehow throw that into my analysis. So if you are interested in doing something like that, you can always use this spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet is something that we put together using data from the American Community Survey. And what the survey allows you to do is to filter the population in San Diego by, say, not exactly by neighborhood, but at least filter that a little more. So for example, right now, this is all the kind of like the projection or the estimate of San Diego's population for 2018 from the Census Bureau. And when you have this, you can see how there's a breakout by different, you know, male, female, and then you have by age, and then you have by ethnicity and race, and then you have by income, right? So you might be wondering, all right, but what if I didn't want to talk about San Diego, you know, San Diego as a county? What if I am only interested in San Diego as a city? Well, there are different filters in here that are gonna allow you to do that analysis. So if you click here, you're gonna see how there's different options. For example, here you can see how it says Fallbrook, Escondido City, El Cajon, Chula Vista, Lemon Grove, and then the different, you know, different areas of San Diego East Central, San Diego Central, Mira Mesa. So you can play around with these filters in a way that is gonna allow you to make your analysis more specific, more detailed. And again, it's not that you have to take this direction, it's just in case that you're interested in, you know, following this direction. Then there are all other things that you can change in here. For example, you can change the sex. Maybe you're just, for some reason, say that you are from CTE programs, specifically maybe welding, and you're interested in looking how can you improve access for female students, potential female students to, you know, CTE programs or welding programs, automotive programs, those kind of programs. Or then let's say that you're interested only in Asian American students, Hispanic students, et cetera, or interested in a particular age group. So what I'm trying to say here is you have different options. And I'm not able to tell you how to do this. This is more up to you, whatever you feel that is gonna take you to a place of, oh, now I understand what's going on. So if anyone is interested in using this, again, this is in the Canvas shell. So take a look at it. And if you have any questions, just do not hesitate to connect with me and we can talk about that with more detail. Now,
Hey, Sue, Shirley was just asking, how long will the Canvas shell be accessible after the Institute? Can we leave it for them for a bit?
You know, I wouldn't, I think, honestly, I don't know, because this is my first time using Canvas, so I don't know how do they manage that in the sense of.
All right, we'll get an answer for you,
Yeah.
Shirley.
Yeah, let me just write that, but.
If not, we can definitely do a Dropbox and make sure that you have the resources if you want to still continue to see them.
Yeah. Okay, I just wrote that. Thank you. There you go. So it seems like Monica is saying that we can adjust the course start and end date from settings. So that sounds, okay, that sounds pretty good. But yeah, we will try to keep it open as much as, or as long as we can. Now I am going back to the PowerPoint. So again, we found that the African American population represents 6%. So again, 2% versus 6% for me sounds like something is going on, okay? Now, I'm going back to the other example. I identify African American students, but I also identify 40 and older students. So let's do the same analysis. I'm gonna go to the student equity report and I'm gonna look at the numbers. So when I look at the numbers, I see that people 50 and older represents 32%, okay? And when I go to civilian, only for Cesar Chavez, I see that 50 and older population, they represent 37%. So if I go back to my table, I only have 22% I mean, my course or my class only had 22% of 40 and older students. So for me, again, that is a problem. So what I did here is that I used all this data to confirm that there's something going on. Because by comparing my data versus the program's data and versus the city data, yes, I'm not getting as much students as I would like to get. But this is the thing. How can we move the needle here? Many of you in your online forms put that question like, hey, I'm wondering, I have identified that I don't have, my Latino students, they represent a smaller proportion that I would like them to represent. How can I improve that? So I wanted to ask you, how can we move the needle there? Like if I am interested in enrolling more African-American students or more older students, how would I do that? Any thoughts on that?
Older students, did you say?
Yeah, I would say older students and also African-American students.
Well, the first question is that the same?
That would be another important thing. You would need to keep looking into the data just to ensure that the same African-American students are.
What age?
Yeah, what age they are, because you're talking a difference between one person and 4 people, and you're looking at a 20% drop almost, and you're over 40. Well, if your demographics of your African Americans is largely over 40, maybe they're retired military, who knows? That's going to kick that. Then it may be a time issue or something like that that's caused it. I mean, again, a lot there you're scratching the surface, but you kind of need some other thing to see, because your number, especially with African Americans, between your desire to 4 and your actual 1 is such a low number that could just be because it's Mouseketeer Day at Disneyland. I mean, it's a small enough number, it's not statistically valid.
Correct. And that is the place where it's very important to, this is where things get into a combination of the data that you're getting, but also your own knowledge. Because just by using your own knowledge, you would know if that is something that is happening consistently, or maybe it's just like a one-time thing. Because if this is just a one-time thing, you might say, well, yeah, it happened that time, but I mean, I continued offering that class, and in the future, after that didn't happen anymore, so I'm gonna stop worrying about that. It seems like we fixed it. So those are the kind of things why it is always very good to do a combination of looking at the data and also using your own knowledge. And that is also why we encourage you to use many data sources. Just like in this case, we went from the data sheet to other 2 reports. And the more reports you want to throw in there, that's okay. As long as you feel confident, as long as you, kind of like have a lead on what is the direction that you're taking. The one thing that I wanted to point out, because you mentioned this in your online form, and I was struggling a little with this one, was the fact that headcount, like increasing the headcount or increasing enrollment for a specific demographic. And I wanted to throw this question to you as a group. Like, can any of that, if I am interested in increasing the enrollment of a particular demographic, is that something that I can do within the classroom?
Within the classroom? No.
Well, unless the students love it so much they tell their friends. I mean,
Right? Or you mean in terms of marketing for students, or what? I'm not sure I understand completely your question.
The question is, as I was looking at the data and I was putting together this exercise, and as I was looking at your online forms, I was thinking, okay, say that I identify that I would like to have more African-American students in my classroom, but how can I do that using a classroom intervention?
Well, first, would there not be, at what liberty are we to actually check other courses, if they're offered, in that same area, to see if you compare directly broken down course to course, not all of the courses lumped together? Is there any way you can find that out first to see if maybe it is something within your classroom itself that you need to think about differently? Maybe if it's the same for all of them in that particular area, then maybe it's something that you need to find out that population needs to know that you even exist. And maybe it isn't something that's actually in the classroom.
So what I'm taking from what you said is that saying that, yeah, it seems like this particular population is not aware of this program. Going back to my example, say maybe what's going on is that my class was offered in Cesar Chavez, whereas the classes from the other faculty members were offered at different campuses. So right now what's going on is that they are not aware of my program in, around Cesar Chavez. But that takes me to a place where I'm like, all right, so I want to fix that. And as Bob Pyle said, maybe I could do like a tremendous job with the African American students in a way that they will love my class so much that more will come. They will, word of mouth, and I'll have more. But it feels like how much can that really impact the amount of students that I could get the next term? So what I was getting from that is that for me, that would be, in order to do something regarding that, I would need to connect either with my program chair, with my dean, with my VP, or maybe with the outreach team. We would have to connect with people, and that would stop being something that we do inside of the classroom to become something like an outside of the classroom intervention. And the reason why I wanted to take you to this place was A, because I wanted to talk about headcount because many of you had that in there, but also B, I wanted us to start speaking about things that can be done inside of the classroom, just because the objective of the Faculty Institute or the action plan needs to be related to classroom interventions. So what I would have to do in this case, in my example, is to acknowledge that there's a problem, yes, and there are ways to fix it, yes. Unfortunately, those actions, besides the one that Bob Pyle mentioned, those actions would be outside of the classroom. Therefore, I would not necessarily include them in my action plan.
But also, it could just be an anomaly, right? Like it could be just that semester, and if you reviewed, 3 other semesters, you'd find that you were actually over, enrolled with African American students, and it's just a blip.
Yes, and that is what, as Brian mentioned, could be that the data is not really significant. Like statistically speaking, this data doesn't tell me anything. And that is why we really encourage you to look at many data sheets, your spreadsheet, like compare data throughout time, and also use your own knowledge to really know if there's something there or not really. So it's kind of like you get that combination of looking at the data, but also knowing your past history and determining, yeah, is that really going on or not really? But that would depend, right? But again, so for this example, I would say, yeah, it seems like there's something going on. Say that I look at the data and I'm fully convinced that there's something going on. I look at past data, I compare to other reports, and there's something going on, I'm sure. But this is outside of the classroom, so unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to put this into my action plan because I wanna do things that happen inside of the classroom. So that takes us to the next step, which is—
Can I make one caveat to that though?
Sure.
If for instance, you were looking at that data and your percentage was down, let's just say of Hispanic population, but the Institute as a whole had a very high Hispanic population, right? And it was just your classes. I would recommend that you might be able to look at strategies in terms of marketing to ESL students, for at least the CTE folks, because we do need to increase pathways within our own organization, and that's a good pathway for high school basic skills and ESL. It's something we try to do a lot, is go in and market to those classes. So, but I agree with what you're saying. Ultimately, we want it to be something inside the classroom and something that the instructor can actually affect.
We have a lot of responsibilities as instructors, in terms of—
Well, it might be something where, to Jesus's point, you'd be working with your program chair, your dean. I often go into a lot of those classes myself and talk. So it might be something that you would talk to your dean and program chair about in terms of like what you would like to see happen.
What if your class, your class is structured so that you have at the end some kind of presentation or accomplishment or whatever that capstone is of the actual course, not of the program, but of the course? Is if you expanded that within your classroom to invite people into that, is that crossing over and not becoming a classroom intervention now? Or can that be structured as that's how you want to run your class and you invite people into that, or to an online event or something like that, that they actually, you do yourself within the students marketing to other people outside?
Your hope would be to get those students to then be your students the next semester.
Right.
I think
Good
that's
idea.
classroom intervention, and we could track that. What do you think, Jesus?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah,
that
sounds
sounds good.
good, Shirley.
And actually, it's good that Shirley mentioned that, because what you mentioned, Shirley, it's kind of like I don't know what's the word. Like, it's a creative way to keep things within the classroom, but at the same time making them to have a higher impact. So that takes me to the next slide, because what I did is that I was trying to find a couple of examples of potential classroom interventions, and the things that I found out is that a lot of the things that have like resources that are outside, like literature and stuff like that, examples from other colleges, those are institutional level interventions. So I first thought, whoa, this is a bummer, because how can I show them lots of things that they are not going to be able to do within the classroom? But then I thought, well, there's going to be a way. I mean, for a couple of them, there's going to be a way to adapt them to the classroom. And I don't want to say that I know the answer to this. This is why I want to bring this up to you. But I think whatever we do in order to make an institutional level intervention a classroom intervention, it would be along the lines of what Shirley just explained, like trying to be creative and finding this way to give more powers or more feet to our intervention. So let me just show you the examples that I have found. So one example that I found, it was a lot about alert and interventions, in the sense of thinking about the classroom. Potentially, you could determine like a point in time in your class, say that after doing this assessment analysis, say that you identify that after assessment number 3, you lose a lot of your students. So that is kind of like an alert. You are ready to take care of those students once you are getting closer to this assessment. So again, this was an idea that I have found in the literature that they did a little different, but I mean, for me, it's kind of like a potential intervention, like trying to find those instances where you might lose students and be ready to help them out. The second one that I found, it was about engagement strategies, in the sense of things like learning the names of all your students, for example, or maybe just saying, hi, everyone, how was your weekend, stuff like that. Some people have tried to do things like that with different results. So this is just trying to give you some ideas so that you can start thinking about what would be a potential classroom intervention for you. The third one that I have is, again, engagement strategies, but with kind of like keeping in mind cultural competencies, in the sense that, maybe just to give you an example, I'm gonna speak as a Mexican. For Mexicans, for us, someone saying good morning, that's like, for us, it's critical. Like, it really, in our culture, the fact that someone tells you good morning or doesn't tell you that really speaks a lot about the person in our culture. So that is, again, some people try to do some engagement or practices, keeping those kind of things in mind, not only for Mexican students, but in general. I also found some about mentoring, in the sense of, as much as possible, because again, it is tricky. One thing that I wanted to talk about is how feasible these things are, because I know we have limited resources, and as Leah mentioned, well, it's putting a lot of things on the faculty, so there's like a limit. So there was a couple of examples about people doing mentoring things with their students, in the sense that they were trying to support those students that were really struggling to get through the class. Then I also found one that was about supplemental instruction, which is kind of like mentoring, but just focusing on the content of the class, identify students that are struggling and following up with them. Skills to succeed. This was one that I found very interesting, because some colleges, this was an institutional level intervention. But I'm wondering if maybe this could be applied to the classroom. Because what some colleges started doing is that at the beginning of the student, when the students first enroll into classes, the first thing that they do, or they have them do, is to take a course that is going to teach you how to get time management skills, how to read, how to look for literature. Like, instead of talking about the program, it's more about how can you be successful in your program, like how you should use Google search, how you should manage your time, how you should the Canvas, all those things. Like, they were starting from that piece before telling students anything about the actual program. So this is just another example that I found. The other one that I found was about what they call like beyond the classroom, like keeping students engaged, or keeping telling students about the prize, what's on the other side. So interventions like this were around telling students like, yes, right now we're looking at these contents, but keep in mind that in the future, in the industry, once you start working, you're going to be doing this and this and this, and also sharing with students like potential apprenticeships options and things like that, in order to keep students engaged, feeling that they are looking at the prize and they are interested in continuing in the program. So there was that, and I also found some interventions about class attendance, kind of like how sometimes the fact that you either drop a student or do not drop a student because they have missed 1 or 2 classes, how that really impacts the level of retention and success that you can expect from some students. So again, these are just some ideas, some things that I found in the internet. I wanted to put them here on the table because I don't know about this, honestly. This is out of the things that I would know. You know way better than myself about this, but I just wanted to put some ideas, and I wanted to hear your thoughts about this. Whether if you think that this wouldn't work, or you feel like, yeah, there might be potential in one of two, or maybe you have different ideas. So at this point, any comments that you have about the interventions are welcome.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea about starting your class out with just some basic things on how to succeed in school. And I think that would really be good for me to look at, because my class is kind of like the very beginning class for healthcare careers. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, now that we're so online, it's like, how are some of these interventions going to translate, to the online environment as well, like mentoring? It seems like it would be very cool. Like, you could get students to like go to discussion, place where they could do that, but coordinating the time and everything as well. And with the, it's like that adds another dimension that now I'm thinking about when I'm thinking an online environment, how does some of this work? It's going to be interesting to see.
A lot of the students really struggle with the online technology. I mean, even the basic, upload a file. How do I do that? I mean, just real, download a file and put it in a folder. What's a folder? I mean, it's a lot of, it's a lot of going through and showing again. And I mean, even something as simple as click here to submit. How do I submit the assignment? They're sending you emails. It's like, no, you need to click it on the page. Where is it? Let me show you again. There's definitely a real technology that a lot of our students are really struggling with. And I'd be curious, if our demographics have changed being online from where we were on campus. And that'll really give us an interesting idea to see which parts of our population are less comfortable or more comfortable with that technology.
I think it's going to be really interesting in fall, actually, Brian, to see like when we do a full semester, what it's going to look like and if the demographic will change, because I've been thinking about that too.
Well, you know what I did recently was go to our website, SDCE, and I just put Google Translate and I changed it into Arabic, and I thought, if I can't read, or if I'm a really low level reader, what will I understand from this website? And obviously I can't read Arabic at all. So I was just looking, I don't know anything. Like, there's no iconography that directs you anywhere. It's all based on language, and I teach beginning ABE, and I'm like, my students can't read. They can't even get enrolled, like, it is going to change our demographic to a degree,
Well, it really does, because I'm glad you mentioned enrollment. We had a lot of students drop off because they got permission codes and they couldn't figure out how to use them. Even though you're sending them directions, you're giving them a video, they're still not able to navigate it.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
tricky.
a lot of our directions, there's just so many opportunities and gaps for the student to fall off.
Yeah.
I know even at my level, I am struggling to get the executive team to really understand that there's just so many exit points that were not really helping these students. I will say, Leah, that the ESL team did some phenomenal work in terms of step-by-step job aids for getting students to be enrolled. I don't know if you've seen those yet or not. I think I might have them.
I think I've heard about. I'll look.
I heard about them. I'd love to see them. I've not seen them
Well,
yet.
wait, I can send them out to the group or I can put them up on Canvas, but
Well, if you could send them out, that'd be great.
they did a really good job. We've been using them here at Chavez. Like I took them and I'm like, we have to use these. I have 2 questions for the group just along this as I'm listening to you guys talk. I'm curious to know, how have you or do you anticipate using your instructional aids in your online teaching? And how have you or do you anticipate using the breakout rooms on Zoom?
We've used the breakout rooms on the first day to get student services in to actually get the people that are having trouble enrolled, especially with us where we have the same group of students who are changing semesters, so they got to reapply and re-enroll and all that semester change. And we've actually used the breakout rooms where Ruth and her staff at ECC have come in, and we've done multiple breakout rooms so you can kind of continue the course, but the students that need help are able to go to that room with someone from student services and get a hold removed or get enrolled, or if they just can't figure it out. And so we've been doing that. We tried that and it was real successful. We've done it a couple times since then now with Otto to try to, again, keep them from falling through the cracks. So that's one way that we've used the breakout rooms. I haven't used them at all in my class, but.
I haven't done a breakout room either.
Mm-mm. All right.
I've
Yes.
not seen one used.
Yeah, I see Matthew mentions the breakout for the student to student. And I do a lot of Zoom meetings. Obviously, that's where there's breakout room. I use a lot of discussions, but that is interesting for the student to student in the breakout. My students are struggling to get to Canvas, even though I've shown them where the link is and I haven't changed it. I had one day still logged into the
You wanna
wrong
say
Canvas.
something?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm co-teaching this summer with another faculty member, and we're using breakout rooms to divide the class to do different activities at the same time. And that way there aren't so many students in the classroom, and she's running one set of activities and I'm running a different set of activities, and then we're switching. So the students stay in the breakout rooms, but we're swapping with each other. We start tomorrow. I'll let you know how it goes. But I think it's going to be an effective way to make a smaller group out of a larger class size.
Has anyone have their IAs joined there? And I see Matt, I understand you don't have an IA, but for some of the heavier trades, have you guys had your IAs join, and are they doing some of those basic things like, hey, let me go through the Canvas shell for you, I'm here for questions? I mean, are they kind of helping you with that process at all?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Not at this point.
There's a
Yes,
comment. Oh, yeah.
Cassandra, I had Tracy in my class, but I didn't have her help with Canvas, so that would be a good thing in the future. She did go into some of the breakout rooms, and gosh, I'm trying to remember right now. She came, I think, the first couple of weeks and joined our class for most of the class, and it was very helpful. The students felt comfortable asking her things, and I think she maybe knew some things that I didn't, and yeah, it was really helpful.
It's one of the things that we've, and thank you, Patty, for that. It's one of the things that's how we're deploying our IAs in healthcare. It doesn't mean that it's right for everybody, but we did have them go through Canvas training, and we want them to be, you know, kind of a push-in service for the instructor. And it doesn't have to be Canvas, but for them to come in and kind of, again, support the instructor. It's something we've been doing in healthcare. And again, it may or may not work for your departments, but I just wanted to share it with everybody.
Cassandra, you,
Oh,
you,
and
you
also-
might want to look at the chat.
Yeah.
Other good comment.
So Matt talks just about that why don't you have an IA, Matt? I don't understand. You don't have an IA in your department? Can you unmute yourself? So are you there? Maybe you're not there.
Oh, he's here.
You-
We got video.
Do you not have one in the department?
We do have one, yeah, for other programs.
But they don't support small business?
I've never requested one.
Okay. So it sounds like you use the breakout rooms for the students to meet independently, one-on-one,
Right.
maybe doing some mentoring possibly, or working together.
Yeah. I have had technical issues with them going into breakout rooms.
Okay.
But I think that's been resolved by Zoom now. So, yeah, they're great. I usually just have a group project, and then at the end of a session, a Zoom session, I let the students go as long as they need, and then I can hop in and out. And if they get the project done and they're done, they can leave and go work on other stuff in the class. But I usually save those for the end, or I'll just do them during breaks.
That's great. And then Tammy is asking, what are they doing in Canvas for you? Do you mean instructional assistants? Yeah. So I'll just speak for healthcare. We made sure that the instructional assistants were trained on Canvas so they could go in and help the instructors for the first couple of weeks of the class. It may not be Canvas related, although they should be able to go in and, like, if people are having problems with kind of like all the things that Brian were talking about, how do I do this, how do I do that, that the IA can kind of take care of that either in a breakout room or in the chat while the instructor's talking, or on their in their program. But they've also done, I know that for our IAs, they've also done some other things to support the instructors. So I know, Patty, you had just said that Tracy was there the first couple of weeks.
And she did, she got all the quizzes on my Canvas shell, and then she would email the students and give them the link and the time to take the test. That was really helpful. So, she did some behind the scenes help for me too.
Awesome.
All right. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, as you go through, as you think through the potential classroom interventions that you can include in your action plan, and also as you review the ones that I'm including in this presentation, keep in mind that one very important thing to consider is how feasible or how sustainable are any potential classroom interventions, in the sense of, as Leah has mentioned, it might be a lot to handle, like in the long term. Maybe if you do it at one time, you are very excited and you're like, yeah, I'm going to support these students, say, throughout this mentoring or supplemental instruction, Right, but the action plan, once we get to section 5, you're going to see how there's a question about sustainability, in the sense of, okay, how do you plan on keep this happening throughout time? Because everyone is aware that there's just so much that a faculty member can do. So, just trying to reflect on that. And that is why I wanted to brainstorm on this instead of letting you know what you can do, because honestly, again, that's outside of the thing that I would be able to provide you some insight. So in this place, I just want to hand you over this. And I also wanted to share with you this very good resources to get ideas. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to provide you the second one on the Canvas shell just because that's a book, so we'll get into copyright issues and stuff like that, I believe. But the first one, I'm gonna put it on the Canvas shell, and I will also throw there some other interventions, or some other documents that show different interventions, but keep in mind that most of them, what I have found is that they are institutional level interventions. So you're gonna have to do that creative analysis like Shirley did, in the sense of, well, this is institutional level, but what can I take from there and apply it to one classroom? So that is something that we will be continue talking about.
Hey, Seuss, I think we can upload the chapter that you're referring to for all of this. I'm pretty sure that you're within your legal A-OK to upload a chapter of a book. It's less than 10 pages.
Then if that is a good, yeah, okay, that sounds good. Yeah. So I'm gonna upload that. Got it. So yeah, I'll make sure to upload that chapter, because what the chapter has is they put together a table with different classroom interventions, and it's very useful because it shows you like this intervention helped them to work on retention. This intervention helped them to work on success. So it kind of like gives you good ideas on what can you can do. Now that's pretty much what I have. I'm going to jump to the Q&A, but before I do that, I wanted to point out or encourage you again, please visit the Canvas shell. Leah Tsao, she has been spending a lot of time really reorganizing it in a way that is more welcoming. So any feedback is encouraged or requested, whatever you think you can provide to make this go work better. We are especially interested, not only because of this particular project. I mean, this is very important, and we still have like 1.5 months for working together, but we are also interested in learning or kind of like getting your feedback on this, because we are anticipating that for the data coaching sessions in fall, the ones for program review, we're anticipating that we're going to have to follow a similar approach. So we are hoping that we can get feedback from you to change things for that project. And now that I said that, let's just jump to Q&A. As always, you're welcome to stay. If you feel like you got what you needed, you can just leave the room. And Cassandra, I don't know if you have any comments.
Sorry. No, I don't have any comments. I thought it was a really good discussion, and I'm happy to stay on for as long as possible to continue the discussion.
So just a reminder, everyone, please share with Cassandra the CRN that you will want she to provide. You would want her to provide you the data to complete section number 4, and just let us know if you have any questions. And right now, does anyone have questions?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Brian.
Hey, Seuss, when will you make the schedule available for the one-on-one meetings?
I would say, I'm thinking, because I do want to connect with you on this one.
Okay, so let's.
Yeah, why don't I send you like proposed times and you can let me know? Yeah.
That sounds good. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.